Hi, my name is Linda Jackson, and I'd like to welcome you to my home and to a series of little talks I'd like to have with you. And in case you're wondering what inspired me to do this, the other day this kid called me, and he was going to college and said that he saw that my name was on the list of these people that worked at the Orange County Fair, and I'm the psychic at the fair, so I seem to be the most interesting one for him, he said. So anyway, he wanted to come and interview me. And when he came, I thought, sure, okay, he sounded sweet. And when he came, I was surprised that he had this huge tablet about this thick, and he had all these questions. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm so busy answering other people's questions that I don't think that they have a lot of questions about me. And so anyway, he was talking, and one of the things that going down his list of questions is that he wanted to know, when people come to the fair, what is the most common question that they have for me? And I thought a minute, and I said, well, you know what? They don't ask me any questions. They come, they sit down in front of me, they'll put out their hands if they're doing the palm reading, and then they expect me in a very short period of time to tell them something about themselves or their life that they don't know. And I said, so usually they don't ask many questions. Maybe at the end, if I miss something, they'll ask a simple little question. But the majority of the time, they just sit there. And so he says, well, how do you do that? And he's looking down like this, and he's writing and writing and writing. And I said, hey, look at me. I said, you're missing 90% of what you could get out of this interview by taking notes. And I said, I'll tell you a little story. I used to work with men's sexuality and men's sexual dysfunctions. And I found that regular hypnosis was really not that effective. Okay, so I went to this class with Dr. Stephen Heller, and it was on neurolinguistic programming and Milton Erickson's technique of how to loop people through their senses, how to read their eyes. Because the eyes are a computer that give a readout. And so he was giving me this lesson, and the whole room was filled with psychiatrists and psychologists, and you had to have a degree to get in there, which I didn't have, but they let me in anyway. And so everybody, as he's giving these demonstrations, he's saying, that, if you're talking to somebody who's visual, because if people are using all of their senses, they can work their way out of any problem they have. But when people are having a real problem, they're stuck in between two systems, and we're all right or we're left-handed. But if we're going to be predominant in more than one, in one or the other of those. And so if you're trying to sell a car to somebody who's visual, first you have to spot where they're predominant, and, they'll be looking up over here, looking up over there, and they're painting a picture with their hands out like this, and they like distance, they don't like to be up close. And so if you're going to sell them a car, what you do is you say, can't you just see yourself behind the wheel of that car? Let me show you a deal that will help you get into it. If you're selling a car to somebody who is auditory, they make very few hand gestures, and they'll be either a blank, straight head look, or they'll be looking down, and or they'll point to their ear because they're computing what you're saying. So they got the blank look, or they're looking down. And so if you're going to sell them a car, what you do is you say, how does that sound to you? Let me give you a deal that you can compute. you know. And so, and they like soft voices. And so they're comfortable with that. If you're going to sell a car to somebody who's kinesthetic, what you're doing is you're saying, they use hand gestures. They're always touching their chest, and they always like to be really close to you like this. And when you're talking to them, and you say, well, let me give you a deal that you can get a hold of. You know, how does that steering wheel feel to you? So that you're speaking the same language as the people that you're trying to communicate with. You know, because we may all be speaking English, but if you're, like, I'm a predominantly auditory, I hear voices, and kinesthetic. So when I have a problem, I close my eyes, like when you're a little kid, you close your eyes and you get into your feelings and you comfort yourself with the sound of your own voice. So when I'm stuck, it's because I can't see my way out of a problem. Now, everybody's different. So when you're talking with someone, the eyes give this computer readout so that you can see if they're stuck in their visual or their auditory or their kinesthetic. And what you try to do is give them the missing piece of the puzzle. And what you're looking for is incongruencies, you know. And so when I see kids that are looking down, you know, or, you know, maybe some people can learn out of a book, but you're not going to learn too much out of a book if you're trying to read the people. The very best teacher you will ever have is that person who's sitting in front of you. And if you look at them and you look into their eyes, they're going to be giving you signals. So 90% of communication people are missing by texting, emailing, you know, they're looking down all the time. So they're missing their ability to read the people. They're missing their ability to see if there's something's wrong. Like when I have clients come to me, I say, do not text. Because you're going to miss the sound of somebody's voice, you know. So I'm in this hypnosis class, and I'm learning how to spot incongruencies and all these kind of things, which is a natural thing to do if you're paying attention. You will naturally pick these things up even if you've had no training, you know. So I'll never forget this. Dr. Heller, he kept telling all these kind of little anal retentive, you know, doctors and psychiatrists who were taking notes continuously. He kept telling them to put it down because they're missing 90% of what he's trying to teach them. So after 3 days of this, at the very end of this thing, he looked at the class and he said, okay, stop right now, put your pencils down. And I want everyone in this room to turn around and look at that lady in the back of the room. He said, do you see that woman? He said, she has not once picked up a pen. And she has not taken one note in 3 days. And tomorrow, when she walks into her office, she is going to use every single technique that I have been trying to teach you people for the last 3 days. You know, so what I want to do in my little talks, you know, because people are a little bit curious, you know, how I do what I do. Well, number one is when I did go back the very next day and I started using all of his techniques. Of course, that was a post-hypnotic suggestion that he gave me. But that's okay. I took it and ran with it. And so, you know, I was doing some of the things that he told me to do, like pace your breathing and with someone. And I was reading their eyes to see where they were stuck or whatever, you know. But I kept hearing this voice because, like I said, I hear, not all the time, not weird, but I hear voices, you know, when I need to. You know, and this voice said, look at their hands. Their hands will tell you something that their mouth and their eyes won't, Linda. So I kind of ignored it for the first week or two, but this voice would not go away every time I was working with people, using all these new techniques, which, by the way, were working really, really well. And so I thought, oh, to hell with it. I'll just do what this voice says, right? You know, because I hate to follow anybody's instructions, not even my own, you know. So anyway, I said, let me see your hands. And so they put out their hands, and they kind of started talking to me. It was like I started to see a pattern. If they wanted to have a wife at home and goof around on the side, they held their hands like this, you know, like that. If they knew more than they said, they'd hold their hands like this. If they weren't open to change, they might hold their hands like this. So there were all these little things. You know, if they didn't trust themselves, right side is male, left side is female. So they might hold that right hand totally different than they'd hold the left hand. So if it's a male, maybe at his work he's saying how he feels, but with women he's not telling them a thing. So, and it's mainly people will, after I'm talking like this, they'll look at their hands and they'll say, well, I'm not seeing that, you know. You won't see that unless you're looking for incongruencies. Now, if there's not a problem and somebody puts out their hands are going to look normal. But just like in reading the eyes, trying to see where somebody has a block or where they're stuck or where the problem is so you can fill in that missing piece, the hands are the same way. The hands are like they're going to show if there's a problem. And so I use that, and, you know, after seeing thousands and thousands of men and working with men's sexuality and men's sexual dysfunctions, I started to see there was an absolute, that there was no separation between how that person was thinking and how they were holding their hands. And the main thing that shows up is if there's a problem, okay? You know, so after a while, I decided I wanted to work with women. And when I was a young girl, I'd gone to see a psychic, and she had said, why do you come to me, your psychic? Her name was Ursula. And she had seen Hitler when she was a child. And I thought, I don't see pictures. Well, of course, as a hypnotist, I figured out that I was psychic, but I just do it differently than other people. You know, some people see, some people hear, you know, other people go with feelings, you know. So I've got two of my systems. Once in a while I'll get, you know, a premonition or a vision or, you know, stuff, but it's not my stronger point. You know, that's why I kind of like to read the cards, because the cards, I get cards that have pictures, not the knife and the death guy, but pictures. So it's easier for me, and it's more pleasant for me that way, and more pleasant for my clients, you know. But it was interesting because when I kind of closed that door, which that's a huge door, I could talk to you forever about that, which I'm going to write a book, by the way. And the book that I'm going to write is called What's Up? The Mental Causation for Men's Sexual Dysfunctions. I know you're just dying to get